Hello and welcome into episode 21 of the Stomp the Bus podcast. I'm your host, Mark Harris, coming to you during Hate Week, as we call it here in Arizona, when the Sun Devils play the team down south. I don't know why it's so funny when people call it the team down south. But yeah, it's Territorial Cup this week on a Friday. We got Thanksgiving tomorrow, recording this on a Wednesday. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. Just a solo show today. And this episode is going to be pretty short. Wanted to touch on the Oregon State game. Oh my gosh, that was a snoozer. Holy cow. The Oregon State game a little bit. Obviously the Arizona game, and then what I think most ASU fans have on their mind, and the coaching search and the Kenny Dillingham rumors and all that. So thanks for listening in. Hopefully by the time Colton and I come to you next week, we'll have some more clarity on the ASU coaching situation, who's staying in terms of the portal. And a quick portal news, saw today on Twitter that Sun Devil defensive lineman Omar Norman Lott tweeted out something along the lines of "It's been real, Sun Devil Nation," and implying he's going to transfer. And you know what? Like nobody should blame him. And to the credit of our fan base, but almost all of the replies, basically all the replies, were fairly positive, thanking for him, what he did. You know, Norman Lott's a guy that has options. He almost transferred last year. He was a 4-star recruit. A lot of people wanted him, and he would be able to help out a team. I don't think that us losing him is like a huge deal. I think it's more of a bigger deal, like perceptually, than it is in terms of actually like winning games. But ultimately, it's going to be a new season next year. ASU is probably going to bring in a ton of transfers. So wishing Omar Norman Lott the very best in his next endeavor, you know. And hey, maybe he likes the coach and he stays. Not counting on that. But yeah, anyway, so just wanted to touch on that. And boy, that Oregon State game, that was an absolute dud. And I hope Michael Crow was in the audience watching, and I hope he looked at the balance sheet after it was an extremely lowly attended game and realized how much money they could have made if they had a better football product. Oregon State's got the best defense in the conference, so it's a little more excusable that the Sun Devils struggled so badly on offense, but boy, they really struggled, and especially in the second half. Pretty much the only Bourget did not have a good game. He didn't turn it over, I don't believe, or if he did, nope, no turnovers for Bourget, but just not that great of a game. Valde continues to be awesome. I mean, he's been he's been a pro. I mean, I think he's second in the Pac-12 in rushing yards. He had 13 carries, 109 yards against the Beavers. Really impressive game from him. You know, yeah. I mean, it was just a really rough game for ASU. No other way to put it. Real feel sorry for the seniors that weren't able to have a good game, or weren't able to get the proper send out. Just a really tough season. And again, it all falls back on Michael Crow and Ray Anderson, because they could have gotten rid of Herm last year and they didn't. And now we're in the situation that we are in. I mean, Oregon State is a ranked team. Like the result of what was supposed to happen happened. So in that sense, it's not the worst thing, but it's just, there was just no life in that stadium. And I mean, it was a noon kickoff. So, I hear a lot of ASU fans complaining about night games. Well, if you don't go to night games, or if you don't go to the noon games, then, what, I don't want to get into too big of a thing about that, because this season is just a complete cluster blank. So, yeah, I mean, just a really bad game. Honestly, I feel like we're lucky that we haven't seen more of those types of games. Because even Wazoo last week was a little more competitive. I mean, really, even the USC game, like the USC game, ASU was kind of in that game for kind of midway through the third quarter. Same with Oklahoma State. This is the first like true blowout that they've had. Or Utah. Utah was similar, but that was also right after the hiring. So I guess this is the second just absolute getting your doors blown off, no hope. UCLA, USC, Oklahoma State, those were kind of Wazoo. Those were you had some, competitiveness. I don't think the Devils like quit as a team. I like the Cardinals against the 49ers a few days ago. They quit. Especially if you watch that last George Kittle touchdown. I don't think ASU quit. I just don't, they're just not that good, And so maybe they weren't at the number like peak motivation, but hopefully there's more spunk out of these guys on Friday in the Territorial Cup. And we saw U of A, they painted the A. So you got to get back at them for that. As an ASU fan, honestly, like I'm excited for the Territorial Cup just because it's fun to watch and it's a rivalry game. And the Territorial Cup, especially when these teams are relatively evenly matched, I mean, the games are just, it seems like they're always just bananas. So from that perspective, I'm interested. But from a what does this mean for the future perspective, I don't really know what the Territorial Cup, what result in the Territorial Cup really does in terms of the long and medium term of this program. Because it's not like they're going to hire Sean Aguano full-time as the full-time head coach if he beats U of A. That's not happening. If you lose, well, guess what? We're expected to lose. Arizona is 4-point favorite. So, like, I think most ASU fans are kind of preparing for the reality that we could lose this game and end the streak. I mean, that's really the biggest thing for me. I'm beyond just wanting to beat U of A, just to continue that streak. I mean, it would be six wins in a row. And if you're an ASU fan and you've watched pretty much most of this season just be terrible, save for the win over UW, which was a bright spot, you want to see them beat U of A just because it's like, oh, you couldn't even beat us when we were bad type of deal. Maybe ASU will be bad again next year. Who knows? But beating this U of A team, because all the talk when you talk about these programs, kind of from a neutral perspective, the consensus is like ASU, they're in trouble. They're going to get hit by sanctions, dumpster fire of a program, Herm, Ray Anderson, Michael Crow, all this drama. And most of that is accurate. Sanctions is still TBD, but most of that is accurate. And then when you flip it over to U of A, it's like, oh, Jed Fish has these guys on the upward trajectory. They're improving. It's like fun offense, and they're recruiting Southern California well. Where have you heard that before? And it's just all this positive momentum. And then you look at the standings, and they are 4-7, one game ahead of ASU, who is a bad team. Like, I think that, just me personally, beating them when they're so-called on the come up, U of A. I mean, they're actually winning a few Pac-12 games this year. What a concept. They might finish 5-7. So they're totally on the upward trajectory. I think that is what I want this win to be about, because U of A fans have talked a lot of crap this offseason, and they've been mostly right. Let's be honest, like, this team is bad. They're having a bad season. It's still unknown how cemented in these issues are, right? ASU is going to hire a new coach. So that's the thing. Like, this can turn around so quickly in college football if you get the right coach. And ASU will definitely lose some talent on this current roster to the transfer portal. But to me, that doesn't bother me that much. Like, I don't blame any of these kids for leaving. And again, like I mentioned earlier, they can just mine the transfer portal for other guys, which we did to some level of success this year. Valde, Swinson, uh, I'd say Edmonds and Bethley on defense. The defensive backfield has not been quite as bad as people thought coming into the season. It's been flipped. The defensive line has been the real weak spot, and the secondary hasn't been a strong spot by any sense. But I feel like they haven't really lost a ton of games because they've just been getting sliced and diced. And maybe the one game they did was against USC, and Caleb Williams is like mini Mahomes. So whatever. Like I'm not worried about that. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic. My overall point is when it comes to the Territorial Cup is ASU fans be prepared to lose. Like there hasn't really been any real thought of that, honestly, for the past probably like the past 3 years. I mean, U of A's just been so bad in at the end of the Sumlin era and that first year of Jed Fish last year. Like it just there was nothing to really even be afraid of. I mean, I remember after ASU lost on the road at Oregon State last year, just a dreadful, dreadful game, a team that was just not fully engaged at all. Were awful penalties. It was just hours of my time I wish I could get back. And then we beat the crap out of U of A, but like nobody cared because U of A was so bad. And it's like, okay, like everyone knew they were going to win that game anyway. They didn't even have to play 100%. So this year, like U of A, they are favored to win only by 4 points. It's a pretty small line. They're favored to win. Their defense is worse than ours, and our defense is not good. So that should tell you something. Last week, Jaden Delora, it's personal against Wazoo, and he threw 4 picks, and U of A had like 6 points until garbage time. So maybe ASU can look at some film from that. It's gonna be a high scoring game. I think winner of this game probably has to get to at least like 38 points. It's gonna be. I would take the over in this game. I don't know what it is, but I would consider that. Yeah, it's just I think again, if you're an ASU fan, you got to look at keeping the streak alive and just being able to beat U of A while they're on the ascension to going 5-7. This is a little tongue in cheek. I get it. It's not a 2-year process. Like T-Mac is an excellent wide receiver. Their offense is considerably better, and like going into the season, if you told U of A fans they would go 5-7, that would be a success. I get it. Okay, I get it. But I do think it's pretty funny. It's just like, oh yeah, we're on the ascent. We're gonna finish 4-8 or 5-7, so we are really killing it. Just does make me chuckle a little bit, but again, U of A was an even worse spot than we are, so that should tell you something. But hoping for a good game or a dominant ASU blowout victory, that'd be great. ASU needs to really lean on a run game in this one because U of A's defense is really not that good, and ASU should be able to do well in the lines of scrimmage. And this would be a really interesting game for Bourget. He's had 2 not very good games in a row, albeit against probably the 2 best defenses in the league, so it has to be considered. But he's from Marana. I could be pronouncing that wrong, but he's from just outside of Tucson. He grew up a U of A fan. There's actually a picture I saw of him online. He's like 12 years old in the U of A section. Looks very young, but I'm sure he'll be wanted to have a good game in this one. So I think Bourget could make this game very interesting. And again, U of A's defense is not good, so got to hope for some turnovers from Delora. He'll give you a few. Just depends if you catch the ball, if the fumble bounces the right way, whatever. So hoping for the best. And here's one silver lining. If ASU does get blown off the field, maybe that spurs Michael Crow to fire Ray Anderson. Maybe that causes the final hammer to drop and we can officially rip off the Band-Aid. But I don't know if U of A is even capable of blowing us out. So that's one thing. And unless we just don't show up, which I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like Iguana will get them ready to play for this game. And I bet a lot of these players don't. A lot of these players on the team probably haven't lost to U of A in their college career. And so whether they're transferring, whether they're leaving to the NFL, whatever it may be, they're probably going to want to leave college without ever losing to U of A, even in a not great era of Sun Devil football history. So we'll see what happens. I know that's kind of my catchphrase on here, but I think for me, the biggest thing about winning this game doesn't really mean anything in terms of the coaching search. There's nothing really to play for other than the rivalry. But winning the game beyond the rivalry aspect is just kind of puncturing the upward momentum of U of A, even though it wouldn't even be that much of a puncture, because if they win, they would go 5-7. So it's the difference between going 4-8 and 5-7. But just to kind of have the crap talking card of, oh, you couldn't even beat us in our worst year in years. I think that would feel pretty good after it would be a 4-8 season for ASU. So a lot of weird stuff happens in the Territorial Cup, and personally, I'm hoping for a lot of weird stuff to happen in that game, because that'll just make it a lot more interesting in a battle of two very below average teams. So go Devils, and hopefully the streak moves on to 6. All right. What you really came for, the ASU coaching search rumor mill that I'm going to dissect. Rumor mill / report mill. If you've been following on social media recently, Kenny Dillingham, Oregon offensive coordinator, is the number one option for the fan base. That's who everyone wants. Maybe not everyone, but that's who seems to be getting the most love on social media. There's obvious reasons for him to come that Colton and I have talked about. He would take the ASU job when maybe coaches wouldn't take the ASU job right now. So that's another aspect to this. So anyway, it was reported by 247 Sports earlier this week. Is it 247 or 24/7? I'm going to call it 247. I think it's 24/7. Either way, 247 Sports reported earlier this week that Kenny Dillingham was, I want to get their phrasing right. It was something along the lines of he was kind of leading the charge in terms of the what am I looking for? In terms of the coaching search, he was at the top of the list. So, we'll see if that amounts to anything. But on Monday, both Sun Devil Source and Devil's Digest, the two biggest blogs isn't the right word, outlets covering ASU sports, both released 5 names that they think that have been in running for the ASU job. So this is I'm going to go with Sun Devil Source first. Kenny Dillingham, San Jose State coach Brent Brennan, former Texas and Houston head coach Tom Herman, former BYU and Virginia head coach Bronco Mendenhall. And this one I did not expect, but it does make a little bit of sense. Former UCLA and current UConn head coach Jim Mora Jr. He was also in the NFL in the 2000s, actually. He coached with the this is before I started watching the NFL, but he was coaching Vic in Atlanta in the mid 2000s range. I think he made it to the NFC Championship game once with Michael Vick with that. And I do remember him as the coach of the Seahawks for 1 year. That was a very bad. He was the Nathaniel Hackett before Nathaniel Hackett, because he got fired after a year. So been a better college coach though. And I mean, he has UConn at 6-5 right now. So even though Jim Mora, I don't think it's going to happen. but he's in the running. It is being credibly reported that he's in the running. So you, as ASU fans, you have to be open to that possibility. And Devil's Digest reported three of the same names: Kenny Dillingham, Tom Herman, and Jim Mora. So based on those two reports, it seems like the three that are both in the running, according to those two, are Dillingham, Herman, and Mora. First off, it's just fantastic that Dillingham is mentioned in both. He's got other buzz. There's just been so much buzz and just so much logic, on paper logic, about why Dillingham is the best choice. Who knows if that will actually materialize? Anyway, and there are three other names mentioned by Devil's Digest. ASU interim coach Sean Aguano. So he does have a chance. I would put it probably like a 4% chance to wind up being the head coach, something like that. And I'd probably have to beat U of A. Alex Grinch, USC defensive coordinator. USC's defense is not very good right now, but this is also Grinch's first year on the job. He's been with Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. He was at Wazoo under Mike Leach. And Grinch is not at all a hire I would really be super jazzed about. But I think the defense will at least be okay under him. He's a defensive mind. Maybe not the first year. But the thing about Grinch that intrigues me is clearly he understands the value of having a high-powered offense, because a lot of defensive coaches don't. So a lot of defensive coaches like to win games 17-14, and they always lean on their defense. And I'm sure many football fans who are listening know how annoying that can be, because sometimes you shouldn't just lean on your defense just because you're a defensive guy. But anyway, the thing that intrigues me about him is he clearly understands the value of a modern offense. And that means with him, similar to Dan Lanning at Oregon, you'll have the offensive coordinators come and go because maybe they'll get jobs or whatever, they'll get fired. But it'll continue to be like, okay, like we're going to bring in a spread guy or whatever, just guys who aren't going to run the pro style offense from 2004, so that's interesting. And the last one mentioned by Devil's Digest was Coastal Carolina head coach Jamie Chadwell. I would love this. I think there's a chance he might be the best coach available for anyone right now. I don't think ASU will get him for a few reasons. One, he's like a Southern guy. Georgia Tech's open. That just feels in the same way that Dillingham and ASU feel like such an obvious match. Chadwell and Georgia Tech seem like such an obvious match. He is kind of a mix of an option and a spread. I might not be describing that, but there is option elements to the offense. And when I watch those games, it just feels like the quarterback just has so many options. There you go. To do, pitch the ball, throw the ball. And it seems like they're just guys open all the time. It's just a fun offense to watch. And for ASU next year, when they're going to be having to, drum up interest and get fans back in the building, having a fun offense will, make it easier on the eyes to watch. If you lose games 45-48 on a weekly basis, that's not fantastic, but it's also like, okay, like at least if you go to a game, it's going to be interesting. So, anyway, I like most of those options. Jim Mora is an interesting choice because he was decent at UCLA. He was not terrible. And again, winning 6 games, going 6-5 at UConn, I mean, that is impressive. So I know that a lot of ASU fans would be upset if we hire Jim Mora Jr. I kind of would be too, just because you come off of Herm Edwards and just an old, I won't say old mentality, but just not super energetic, youthful, whatever, any adjective you can throw out there. We all know that it just, especially by the end with Herm, it just felt so just dispassionate. Um, and Jim Mora, even though he's older, he's I think he's 61, not super old, but he has been in the game more recently, been in the game longer, the college football game that is, and he's literally been in the game. He's coaching right now at UConn, and so it. I think the ASU fan base really wouldn't want it, but it might not be the worst thing that could happen. Tom Herman is very, very, very intriguing because his record is a lot better than people think it is. I think he lost like 4 games total at Houston and won a New Year's Six bowl. So that's freaking awesome. And then at Texas, okay, I think he went 7-6 his first year. I'm trying. I looked into his Wikipedia page the other day just because when I saw that he was mentioned, he went 7-6 his first year. He won 10 games his second year. I think he finished 10-3 or something, and then won the Sugar Bowl. That was the Sam Ehlinger "We're back." Remember it? College football fans remember that game, and of course, they weren't really back, but they still won a Sugar Bowl. Like if ASU wins the equivalent of a New Year's Six bowl, which would probably be making the college football playoff in the 12 team field version. That'd be great. And then I think the other 2 years, I think he went like 8-5 the next year, and then the 2020 year, he went 7-3 in a Big 12 schedule. But it's just the Texas job is so weird. It seemed like the boosters were against him, and to Herman's own fault. I remember he like flipped off the camera. He just there was some weird just leadership stuff, personal stuff, but the man can coach and he can probably recruit decently well. And I don't think it would be the worst hire. I want Dillingham. That's who I want. I'm like everyone else. I don't care that he doesn't have head coaching experience. I mean, and this is what I'm talking about. 24/7 Sports reported sources. Arizona State has had discussions with Oregon offensive coordinator Kenny Dillingham about the head coaching job. So just another report that confirms that he is in the running. 100%. There is a real life possibility that Kenny Dillingham could be the next ASU head coach. I hope he is, because I think that is the move that will get the most fan engagement right away. And that is important in the NIL era. It just is. Hype matters, okay? Doesn't directly lead to wins, but it can indirectly lead to wins in terms of getting a recruit you may not have gotten, getting attention. Again, it doesn't lead to everything. ASU had some hype under Herm Edwards at times, so it's not. But the fan base right now is very what's the word? Very not in a good place, I would say. And excuse me, Dillingham's got everyone wants. Everyone would get behind him. There wouldn't be bickering. Everyone would be all aboard the Dillingham train. And it's been also reported that he might keep Iguano on staff, that would be great because that is a career move up for Iguano. Sure, he's not being the head coach anymore, but he started this year as the running backs coach. So if you move up from running backs coach to OC, that could help him land a job in the future, whatever it may be. So, look, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm hoping by the time Colton and I come back to you midweek next week that Kenny Dillingham has been named the ASU head coach. We'll see what happens. And, with our luck as ASU fans, it'll probably be someone that hasn't even been reported yet. And we'll just be scratching our heads. So thanks for tuning in to episode 21. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube and to leave a review and a 5-star review on Apple or whatever podcasting platform you listen to us on. So go Devils. Let's hope they beat U of A. Let's hope next week the the streak is at 6, and Kenny Dillingham is ASU's next head football coach. Got to end this on a correctly pronunciated note. All right. Thanks for listening, and go Devils.